This is a really bad anise figure because she is not smelly enough, not lore accurate enough. Hi and welcome back to the channel. I'm Steven from X Kurogane Studio. Today with a scale figure review, and it is Good Smile Arts Shanghai again, where I reviewed the Rapi sometime last year, and it was an excellent figure for roughly 15,000 yen. This time around, coming from the same company and also from Goddess of Victory Nikke, we have a 1/7 scale anise going for roughly 18,000 yen. So that is still considered on the lower end of the scale when it comes to premium scale figure pricing. And at this 18,000 yen price, is she any good? We shall find it out in today's review, but spoilers, she is slightly inferior to that Rapi figure last year, but still a pretty good purchase if you can find her for a small discount maybe. So there are 3 issues I found on this figure, but fairly minor ones which we will need to discuss later on. But before that, the dimensions of this figure, it looks pretty small in front of me, isn't it? But the height of this, including the base to the top of her head over here, is actually 20 centimeters. And in this sitting pose over here, that is indeed 1/7 scale. The release date of this figure is way back in November last year, November 2025. I believe it is around the 18th or 20th, around the 3rd week of November. And you know what? I almost forgotten about this figure even existed until I saw someone talking about it online. Then I was like, oh, this figure already came out. I need to throw it into my shopping cart, and she only made it into my figure haul back in January last month. So before I proceed, the packaging, the box of this anise, where did I even put her box? Never mind, let me put this video footage from my figure haul video roughly a month ago on screen. This is what the box looks like. And as for the quality of the box, how well does it protect the figure? I would rate it roughly 5 to 6 out of 10 maximum. So it is a very ordinary, very average paper box, the kind you see in pretty much every scale anime figure with a lower price tag. The material is kind of thin, just a cardboard paper box. And if the postman were to treat your figure badly, then the box is going to take a lot of damage and dent very easily. That kind of paper box. So nothing too special over there. And if there's anything fragile on this figure, it has to be this hoge, right? This hair strand in front, which is something you'll see on every Altoria saber figures out there from Fate series. So that is the one part you need to be careful when you handle the figure, not to touch the hair at all. And perhaps these plastic connections on the chair over here, you need to be very careful with it, because this is where our next section comes in, the stability of the figure. This chair is not plugged into the base. It is just sitting on it, and there are 4 grooves, 4 round grooves on the base. You just align the chair and leave it there. And the figure sits on the chair without any kind of peg or any form of connection, not even any magnets at all. One can say that this is a lower budget figure, less than 20,000 yen, so we should not be expecting any magnets, which is fair. At the same time, Chinese brands like Figmon, they were adding magnets to a 9,000 yen 1/4 scale figure. So I'm not even sure anymore how to defend Japanese brands who cut corners like this, because this figure is not exactly secure. Like, you can shake the figure and then anise will slip off the chair and fall on the ground. Yes, there is a small groove on the chair, but don't shake the figure, it will just slip off like that. And that would be the last time I shake this figure. Let me put her back properly. I won't shake her again, because who knows if I accidentally introduce paint transfer, the paint on the chair could end up underneath her legs, right? So stability on this figure is pretty poor, because there is no support, no security whatsoever. This is like a 3 or even a 2 out of 10. I would say a 3 is fair, because a 2 or 1 out of 10 is reserved for standing anime figures that feel like they would break anytime. So this is like a 3 out of 10. So moving on to the sculpt of this figure, once again, factoring in the price of 18,000 yen, this is roughly a 6.5 out of 10 or 7 out of 10 maximum, not any higher than that. What we are looking at is pretty much a pretty anime or game character in a swimsuit plus a jacket over her. That is all you're getting over here. So this is swimsuit figure level detail. If you look closer, you just get a bunch of skin, big opie, and most of the details are concentrated in two things. Number one is her jacket. Number two is in the can she is holding over there. That is more of paintwork or decal work rather than sculpting. So the sculpt of this figure is like 6.5 to 7 out of 10. Just a bit above average for an 18,000 yen figure, because if you get a Chinese brand to make an 18,000 yen premium scale figure, they are likely to be able to squeeze more out of it, like more sophistication compared to what we get over here. But hey, I am a Nikke fan, I like Nikke characters, so I bought one anyway. As for the face of this figure, I would give it an 8 out of 10. Looks fairly like anise. I'm not sure why I'm not giving her a higher score. Maybe it is because the hair is not detailed enough. Par for the course, I would say, at this price point once again. But the hair is not as detailed as I would like, but at least the sunglasses make up for it. The sunglasses look really nice over here. Speaking about the sculpt, are there any flaws at all? Well, I did find one. I'm not sure if this can be called a flaw. This is more like a lack of refinement. So at the back of her head over here, if you look at her hair over there, the one I'm circling up, yes, it looks a bit uneven, doesn't look very nice over there, and that is definitely a sculpt issue. Part of the reason why I gave her no more than 7 out of 10 is also because of her hair behind her head. Any other flaws like ugly gaps or seam lines, mold lines, I couldn't find any, so that is it for the sculpt department. Moving on to the paintwork. The paintwork is a bit of a mixed bag as well, but it is mostly good news. But there were two minor flaws that I found in the paintwork, so I shall share the bad news first before I share the good news, right? The bad news, there are two tiny flaws. The first one is on her sleeve right here. Now look at this footage over here and let me punch in a little bit closer, and I'm circling that in red color. What do you think that is? Because I feel like that shouldn't be there. So my speculation over here is that this is probably a flaw. Whatever that flaw is, that was present after they injection molded the figure, and they tried to fix that flaw with putty, like Tamiya putty paste, which I really love. I use it a lot myself. And simply put, they did not do a very good work with the putty around this area over here. So you get this uneven look over there, which is not very nice. But once again, this is something you will only notice if you look very closely. Of course, my cameras are going to capture everything in detail with this one over here. And I'm not sure if this kind of mistake with the putty is present in every copy of this figure. This could be random. And the next tiny flaw is on her left knee over here. Is it right knee or left knee? I think the left knee over here. It is barely visible. But if you look very closely, there are two yellow spots over there on her knee. And my guess over here is that paint come from her jacket. Like someone is hand painting a figure, and by accident, they left behind two paint spots or two paint transfers on her knee when they were handling the paintbrush. Something like that. That is a possibility. So the color is very similar to the color of jacket, so that is where I'm guessing it has to come from a jacket. So these are the two tiny flaws I found on the paintwork of this figure, but that is for my copy, of course. Your copy, should you purchase one, should be a bit different. And from this point onwards, everything is good news about the paintwork. No other kinds of paint transfer, no paint bleeding, no scratches, and the white color stripes on her jacket, the fine details on the jacket, everything is painted to precision. At least the detail parts which I really care about, they have painted it perfectly, no issues over there. Not to mention the color gradient, the shading on the jacket, a mix of yellow and orange, amber orange, is really nice to look at. I think the best part about this figure is definitely her jacket, and without this jacket, this figure might even feel like looking at a price figure, right? A slightly better price figure. Paintwork, my verdict on this one is 6.5 out of 10. Not higher than that because of the two flaws I found on the figure, on the sleeve and on her knee, right? 6.5 out of 10. But by no means is this a bad figure at all. I'm just being very strict with the paint department. You can find shading not just on the jacket but also on her hair. The only unfortunate part is that the shape of her head, if you look at her from the back, It literally looks like a dick head to me. It looks rather phallic. I know, I have a dirty mind, but that is literally what I saw when I looked at her head from behind. It looks like a dick head to me. Everywhere else is more pedestrian, like the stockings over here, not stocking, the socks over here, there's some shading on the skin, some slight pink color tones, not very obvious, but that is good enough because I don't like how the Chinese brands love adding too much pink color paint to the skin when they do shading. This is okay, right? And the last part for this figure is the base. So this kind of plastic base, is this acrylic, is this ABS, I'm not sure, must be transparent ABS. With this texture over here, I'm neutral about it. I wouldn't say I like it, but I wouldn't say I hate it either. It is something new for me, but the 4 grooves on the base for her chair to sit on, they are very shallow, and unfortunately the chair, they are not lining up precisely with the round grooves in the base, right? There is some misalignment over here where if I were to align 2 legs properly on the grooves on one side, then the other 2 legs would not sit properly in the grooves on the other side of the base, right? They are slightly out of alignment, no matter how hard I tried. So this is probably a slight distortion of the legs of the chair over here, and that is pretty common with materials like plastic or resin, where when the material goes from a liquid state or a molten state into a solid state, when the material hardens over time, it may distort or shrink a little bit, and that might change the shape of the object ever so slightly. So most likely the chair's legs has distorted ever so slightly during the manufacturing process, and I am not going to try to bend it into place because I might risk breaking the chair over here, these thin parts. So I would rather not try to bend it at all, because this is not PVC, this feels like ABS plastic, and ABS plastic is not as forgiving. They are strong, they are very light material as well, but don't try to bend it, right? Because the connection points over here with other parts might break, so I'm leaving it the way it is. For the base, I'm giving it a score of 6 out of 10 maximum. Yeah, and that is not factoring in the chair, of course, only the base. 6 out of 10. So arriving at the conclusion of today's figure review, can I recommend this anise figure over here? Yes, you wouldn't want the figure coming in smelly, so I get it. That is not a criteria for recommending this figure. I was just making a joke, obviously. So this figure still comes as recommended if you are a fan of Goddess of Victory Nikke, but you do not want to spend big money on 1:4 scale like the 1:3 ink, 40,000 yen, or you do not want to spend big money on third-party resin figures where there are a few options out there, then this anise figure over here is like a very nice mid-range figure. When you buy a mid-range smartphone, not too cheap, not too expensive, somewhere in between. The same thing over here, this feels like a mid-range scale figure that is reasonable in price and value for money. Surely she is not perfect, but more than good enough. She is way better than any prize figure or pop-up parades or tenitals out there, and that is enough for some people. So for that reason, at the price of 18,000 yen, I can still recommend this figure. If you can find a deal on her and not pay the full 18,000 yen, maybe you'll find a discount anywhere between 13 to 15,000 yen, then this would be an absolute bargain purchase. So what are the alternatives other than free ink 1:4 scale? Are there any other scale figures of anise? I don't think there are any, isn't it? I don't recall any. Other than the Kotobukiya 1:4 scale, which is still in grey prototype, other 1:7 scales, there are none, I think. Interesting. I've never thought about this, but who knows, in future, within a year, Hobby Sakura might announce their own anise figure. I think that is a given at this point because they are going all in with Nikke. So you might want to wait for the Hobby Sakura version if you don't like what you're looking at over here, and that is fine. So that is all for today's figure review. I hope that it is informative and helpful to those of you who are looking to purchase one but you're unsure. And if this video is entertaining or informative, please give it a like and subscribe to this channel for more anime figure content. And until then, thanks a lot for watching. I'll see you soon. Goodbye.